All right, my name's McKenna Parish. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I went to the University of Central Florida with my business degree, and I lived with Catherine and Derek Wheeldryer, and I worked at the Sloman Group as an account manager intern. So I didn't join this program off of any premeditated plan. I don't think there's actually any thought involved at all. To paint you a picture of, first, this is the University of Central Florida. That's where I went to school. I forgot to switch a slide. To paint you a picture of how I joined the program will probably take about 20 seconds. I was back in Florida. I just got off a shift as a server at a country club. I went back to my very lonely, overpriced Florida apartment, and I called my sister, and we had one of those, I don't know what I'm doing with my life talk. And she said, well, McKenna, have you considered the Chattanooga Fellowship program? And I was like, oh, yeah, you told me about that 2 years ago. Elena worked with one of the fellowship grads, so that's how Elena knew about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that. I could do that. So the next day, I applied. The next day, I interviewed with Jonathan and Emily. And the next day, I found out I was accepted. And through that, there was 7 days until the program. One girl dropped out. And finding out I was accepted, I quit my job, broke my lease, filled 2 garbage bags full of clothes and very small amounts of accessories, packed my car up, and that's how I drove from Florida to Tennessee. My unbridled lack of thought was solely accompanied by God's ordained confidence to follow him. My journey to this program revitalized my faith in God, offering me the understanding he is simply sovereign through timing, opportunities, and new chapters. This new chapter graced me with the growth in areas God specifically wanted to influence. This growth is shown within the investment of community, seeing work as a sacred responsibility, followed by newly intentionality to engage in the growth of God's kingdom on earth. 9 months ago, I was accompanied with rugged individualism. I prided myself in my independence and my self-confidence, and I still struggle with that pride. Throughout my life, I truly walked to the beat of my own drum. I was content in knowing I didn't need any help or support. The more I fed my self-sufficiency, the more I was disheartening God's intention for who he created me to be. I learned we are created to act as communal beings, and that community is from the world that God wants it to be. That is my sister, and that is Micah, and that is Andrew, and I was supposed to do that slide before, but they live in Chattanooga, and yeah, so they live in Chattanooga, and Micah's sitting right there. I was supposed to do that slide earlier. Anyways, the biblical ideal of community fosters life together as the people of God. It is a process that is revealed through the each other language of the gospel. Forgive each other, regard each other more highly than yourselves, teach and correct each other, encourage each other, pray for each other, and bear each other's burdens. I came into the program with the highest and strongest walls up. I didn't need anyone. I didn't want to let anyone in. It was just me and my individualism. God taught me to embody that language in a deeper capacity through community and friendships. I began a journey to not only mature in the relentless pursuit of a growing relationship with Christ, but to also pour out my life in others to hearten the gospel as a lived reality. I want to start by honoring God's unmistakable intention to home me with Catherine, Derek, and Davis as my host family. I didn't think I would love a random couple in their 30s from Chattanooga and their small child who likes Paw Patrol and dipping watermelon in ketchup. Well, actually, dipping any food in any sort of condiment. His meals are structured around what condiment he wanted. But I fell in love hard. I babysit Davis for Catherine and Derek so they can play in their soccer league, and that's how I got to know him a little bit. He calls me Ken because McKenna is super hard for a child to say. We're working on McKenna, so we've been associating Ken with the letter M. So whenever he says M, he's like M, Ken. So we're working on the McKenna part. I still can't get over the willingness of them to home a random girl from Florida so last minute when they were expecting someone completely different. And it wasn't just a casual, nonchalant 9 months. In the period of the 9 months, we sold their current home, moved into a new home, and Kat also introduced her new pregnancy. I hope you told everyone by now. It's a boy. God placed me into their storyline as a resemblance of his unconditional love and his design for how Christ's community should exist. To me, the host family aspect was the most intimidating. I came from my one-bedroom, overpriced, lonely apartment, and moving into a random couple's home was very intimidating. God acclimated my natural fear and inverted it into a blessing where new relationships were formed with the capacity to be long-lasting and life-giving. Beyond the program, I'm going to remain living with Catherine and Derek, and they're going to start renting out their basement to me. Unfortunately, I can't live free forever, even though that'd be really nice. I learned that God doesn't recycle or throw away relationships. I learned that they're not just surface level, that the relationships he intended to have in my life are life-giving and long-lasting, and they're also gifts. Catherine, Derek, and Davis are a gift to me. Through the opportunity to seek discernment of community, I grew in my understanding of generosity. The definition of generous giving was connected to me in a solely monetary fashion. I thought it was connected with money. I thought if you had more money, then you could give easily. I learned generosity is consecrated by God's love on earth. It is also a blessing. Through the many community dinners, vocational lunches, and nonprofit visits we partook in, God illuminated his design of generosity through allowing us to be served, but then allowing us to serve. I learned that's a give and take, and that generosity is special when you receive both. This blessing is shown in the opportunity to live how Christ lived and to glorify him while doing it. It is how God intended his followers to exist, in a cycle of service of others to expand and indulge in community far beyond my complacent individualism. In the first semester, during our class with Liz is sitting right there, I found myself a bit on edge after we were given a feeling circle chart. If you know what a feeling circle chart is, there's a lot of feelings, a lot of different colors, and to me, I knew that I was either happy or sad, and I didn't even know that I was happy or sad in that moment. But this feeling circle was very intimidating. I struggle with even expressing and naming a feeling, so seeing of hundreds of those different feelings were definitely something that put me on edge. We went through the book To Be Told by Dan Allender. This book shows you how to listen to the stories of your life and identify the themes that God has written there. It encourages the exploration of a clearer sense of the meaning that God has ingrained into every detail of who you are. This class was challenging for me because it forced me to dig into stories and feelings throughout my life that I never visited before. In the third chapter of Job, the sufferer responds to a situation with heartfelt lament. And his lament was not in isolation, but in the context of his closest relationships, namely with his wife and friends. In their presence, he turns his lament toward God in a way that shows his ultimate trust in his Redeemer. Through the pain amidst the probing of vulnerable stories, God intentionally had me in my arms of my friends. He didn't want me isolated or secluded in the moments of weakness and the moments of vulnerability. This class and through the program, I learned the metaphysics of community and friendship is to be respected with deep, honest, and vulnerability. Should we reflect on resurrection and hope? Of course we should. But should we also confess the cross and tragedy and struggle? Of course we should. We struggled hard, but we struggled hard together. And in that way, I learned the openness of friendships, and I learned what true love was intended from God. I learned the beauty of epitomizing unity that promotes wholeness and healing against self-protection or even division. God intended for us to love each other, but to also share and support each other's pain. He wants to enrich every part of who we are, and that was very, very scary for me. I was fine with just allowing myself to be known in the ways that I wanted to, but through the probing questions and the storyline that we went through, that brought up a lot of different things that my friends were able to love me through. Yet through all of that, God acted in grace, solidarity, and hope. I worked at the Silverman Group, and I came in very last minute, completely being fine with working at an ice cream shop. With Jonathan's grace, he found me a job that not only was I thrown into, but it's the best job that I've ever had. We were all asked to, if we were to give a TED Talk, what would it be on? I said insurance. I can't say that my job has been my favorite because of insurance, but I can say it's been my favorite because of how Jack abstains from the every man for themselves, corporate America business mentality, but into work as a fruitful mannerism with accountability to God and to others. We live in a world where socialism has taken over. People eliminate God from their culture, and as a result, one of the most basic moral virtues that has left us is work. We studied the concept of work throughout the program, and I dove into the realization that work is not a matter of the curse. This was one of my favorite topics we studied because I retained it as a profound impact. My research put into perspective the collapse of moral commitment through work in a society. Without God ingrained as the basis of our own truth, the universal standard of behavior is customized to a selfish, individualistic approach of work. The naturality of man, being made in the image of God, is to be a worker. God works every day through us, through when we had a hard class together with Liz, through when we're praying together, through even this whole program, God's working. And because he works, we work. And in reality, it's God's work that we're doing. I have grown determined to work as I see how God has chosen me as his image bearer to propagate work as a virtue and a moral behavior to grow his kingdom and flourish his creation. It is how he draws near to us and how we draw near to each other. On our last retreat together, I feel like I should probably change this slide. So actually, that's a funny thing. That's our first retreat together, that picture. But I'm going to talk about our last retreat together. And Peter led us through a devotional that encouraged us upon the importance of praying, but to also seek God and draw near to him. He prayed together with us, saying that he wanted his intention for us moving on from this program to always be seeking God, and to do that through one another, through our work, through our service, and through what our life should look like. He read Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I plan to set my heart and my intention on the presence of God, to remain in continual consciousness of the gift God gave me to know him, to know his greatness of his personal character through community, friendships, service, and work. So, in conclusion, thank you to the Chattanooga Fellowship Program for teaching me that paths need to be traveled, images need to be considered, songs need to be sung, silence needs to be observed, God must be present, sat with, listened to, and engaged with. Thank you.